Hello again, Odyssey families. This is Josh the Behaviorist, and we are getting closer. Here we go. This is actually a revision of a presentation I performed back in November when we had initially thought we were going to reopen. I guess not initially. We've gone through a number of different times and reopening schedules, and so here we are. It is actually April 2021, and it is approaching. We actually do have some students on campus. We're going to have more coming soon. And so I wanted to revise this with a little bit more information, a little bit new information as we're getting closer. So let's get into it. There. Okay. So as of this recording, we've begun the process of reopening the school, and families will be notified. I think probably the first line of defense is going to be or contact is going to be your teacher. Is probably going to reach out, possibly someone else from staff. But to let you know, so what the tentative dates are, there's always, as we all learned in this last year and a couple months, we've all learned that things change. But I think we have a pretty firm idea of when we're going to be opening, and I think you should all be hearing something soon by the time this reaches YouTube. So let's get into it. So, and this is always a caveat I put in all my videos, but as always, you want to consult if you have an in-home ABA program or team or any other professionals, whether that's a doctor, neurologist, primary care, or other specialists. You want to make sure that you're addressing your students' needs. There's some things that we don't know about or that we haven't really been a part of. Because we are a school. If there are issues, underlying medical conditions, we've talked a lot about allergies and medications recently on campus, and making sure that we have a clear understanding of where those, how those are being administered on campus and all the paperwork that goes along with that, especially allergies. We want to make sure that we're addressing those. So please work with your professional team, your care team, to make sure that you have your student-specific needs addressed. And these are all sort of strategies that are just sort of an umbrella that could work. They might not work for every student. They might not be appropriate for every student. These are just some ideas and concepts. So let's get into them. So there are a couple things I wanted to highlight. So due to COVID regulations, there are new drop-off procedures in place. So if your student does travel by Odyssey van to campus, the van staff, when they come to pick up the student, will ask a series of questions about COVID, about symptoms, and they're going to do that prior to placing the student on the van. They're going to ask you those questions. You're going to have to sign to acknowledge that you answer the questions with, honestly and with completely. They're all yes and no, but just in case. The student will also have their temperature taken, and the cutoff point is 100.4, and that's pretty much across the board for, I think, CDE, California Department of Education, and everyone else. So if your student has 104 fever, they're not going to, or if they have showing symptoms, they will not be taken to school that day. And there are procedures. They'll have a handout for you to explain what steps you need to take at that point to get the student back on campus. At the same time, now we have also, if your student's dropped off by a family member, school district, or other third party, the drop-off spot will actually be on the north side of campus. It's in between the buildings 4 and 5. There's a coned off area. You'll pull in your car, and again, a staff member is going to come up, ask a series of questions, all the same questions that the other folks are asking, before retrieving the student from the vehicle. So we're not going to pull the student up first. We want to make sure we have those questions answered, and those are from CDE. Every campus is kind of required to do that. So specifically ours too. But and again, if they have a temperature above 104, they won't be allowed to stay on campus if they've had contact. And again, there's a handout that we'll provide you. And just know, and I think we're all anticipating as we get things going and more students, we are going to expect delays. We're probably going to expect a little bit of a traffic jam on that side of campus, where typically the vans just go all the way around. So we will have that sort of situation, and we're anticipating it. So just please be patient. And maybe plan ahead a little bit, maybe arrive a little bit earlier than you normally would, just to anticipate for that delay. So distance learning, and this is really a repeat of, I tweaked a few things, but this is really a repeat of the video that I made back in November about the transition. But I'm going to go through this really quickly. Again, if you have any questions, you can ask your teacher, reach out to me, they can reach out to me. So So during distance learning, our students have not had the normal structure of school. I mean, we all know that. And that's something that a lot of parents have been concerned about. So this transition though, because the students have had over a year now being off campus, it can be a major disruption to their new normal of being on distance, being at home. And so here's some ideas about what we can possibly do to sort of minimize that transition and sort of that disruption coming back to campus. So one of the main things that I've heard a lot of families express, and we've talked a lot about, is sleep routines, where a lot of sleep schedules are way off. So one strategy is to shift that. You don't want to do something where, if your student's always getting up at 10 a.m. and they need to be up at 7 or 6 even, depending on the van schedule or travel schedule, you don't want to try to do that in one day. It's going to be really rough. So one strategy is possibly when you know the date that your student is returning to campus, you just wake them up 15 minutes earlier every day, 15 minutes again, then 30 minutes earlier than what they were doing. If they're waking up at 10, the first day, maybe you wake up at 9:45. The next day, maybe 9:30. Maybe if it's even 10 minutes, depending on your student, maybe half an hour. I mean, you could always do that. But over the couple weeks, sometimes it can be over a week or two, you'll get closer and closer to that, to the normal sort of regular wake up time for school. And just a note there at the bottom that you want to make sure, because you're waking them up earlier, you're probably going to want to get to bed earlier. So you really want to burn off that extra energy. Make sure that they're getting outside. The sun, the weather is really pleasant right now. So trying to get outside if you can, but get that exercise. So you want not just waking them up earlier and not doing it on the back end. Making sure waking them up early, getting that energy out, and then trying to get them to bed earlier. They should be a little more tired if we're getting them up earlier, but that doesn't always work, and we all know that. And then if your student is waking up already pretty close to what their normal school wake up time is, you can start them performing all those normal routines early as well. Even if your student's getting up early, but because of you're not going to school, you let them little more flexibility on the timing of breakfast and getting dressed and brushing teeth and all those get ready skills and routines. You might want to bring it closer. So if they're getting up at 7:30 anyway, get them ready so they're as if they're going to be ready for the day by 8. They might be getting on the vans, or you might have to be getting in the car by 8 o'clock. But the closer we can get to that, so it's more of a normal school day. So similar to the sleep routine, this can be done over weeks in small steps. You're not just going to suddenly wake them up one day, wake them up really early and get them all ready by 7:30 in the morning. And that's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be helpful, and we're probably going to get a lot of resistance. So slow little chunks, little steps. Another element is the new normal is mealtime. Something I've talked to a few of the teachers about is that, on campus, typically, we have snack time, maybe 10:30, depending on the classroom. Then we have lunch around 11:30, maybe noon, maybe 12:30. If your student has been, kind of grazing, throughout the day, rather than having a full, a normal breakfast, lunch, dinner, 3 meals, larger meals. If your student's been grazing, snacking, and they're sensitive to those longer gaps in between having those snacks, you might want to do the same thing. Try to get them back to a normal sort of breakfast, which is going to be before they leave for school. They'll have a snack with us, but they're not going to get a full lunch, a real lunch, until maybe noon, 12:30, sometimes even later, depending on the classroom schedule. So the more that we can kind of mimic that, so they're not dealing with being on campus and all these other demands and being super hungry because they're used to grazing all day, and now we're kind of limiting things. So especially if your student is sensitive to those long gaps, if your student gets hangry or just is really sensitive to not having that intake, that would be another thing to sort of start establishing. Again, you're not going to start on one day, but maybe start pushing things, having a little more of a snack time, like kind of a gap. Even if they're grazing, they can graze in the morning, then you kind of cut things off, and then they can have a meal at lunch. Start that over the next couple of weeks ahead of when they're coming onto campus. And then we're going to talk about this priming and social narratives. There's a whole description here, but priming, we can use a lot of these strategies. There's other videos on our channel and out there just in general to prime them for coming back. So a social narrative, let's just talk about it. So for the transition, we can provide a social narrative so that you could read with your student. It would have pictures of campus, picture of their classroom, possibly picture of their teacher. And also one thing that's a little bit different is I'm starting to, oh, actually not on there will be videos posted. They're not gonna be on the OLC website, they're gonna be on the YouTube page. But what I've already done for a couple of classrooms is take a video of what it looks like coming back into campus, because it is a little bit different. We have some new gates, we have some new rubberized bark. So we want to make sure that we're anticipating those changes too, so we can prepare those students so they can see what the classrooms look like, the desk layout, the flooring, all those things, and even the teachers maybe look a little bit different, and seeing people with masks. So those videos will be posted. I'll be sharing those directly with the teachers because they're going to be specific to each classroom. Safety procedures and mask wearing. I know there's a whole other video about that. Students are not required to wear masks, but all the staff is. So we all will be wearing different varieties of masks. I have a whole video on all the different varieties of masks that you might see on campus. But again, a social narrative might be something that can help with that. And then even if, especially if some students have not left the house lately and haven't been out, haven't been in public with a lot of people with masks, it's going to be a little bit of a shock to their system because everyone's going to be wearing a mask. Oh, every staff member. Other students won't be wearing masks, some of them will. But if they're not accustomed to that, that might be a little bit of a shock. And again, a social narrative might be helpful. I know that we have a lot of those available. Just reach out to your teacher and they can provide those. Hand washing is another thing. We want to make sure we get that going. Definitely that's going to be something when we get back on campus. But if you feel like your student's going to need some extra help, reach out to your teacher and they can provide you a visual guide, a task analysis, which we've talked about in other videos. Or there's also task analysis video. There's task analysis video on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. And also I think there's some classrooms have made YouTube videos about washing hands and demonstrating all the actions. So utilize all those things to prepare your student for that other task that's happening. And then that's just about it. This is actually a website that I got a lot of these, some of these ideas from, but also there's a ton of videos about token charts and all sorts of things on the Odyssey YouTube channel. But this is gonna be kind of a short one because I know I went into more detail in that other video. But I think as we're getting closer, there's going to be more things that we're going to be providing you. I know there's more packets and information coming home from the teachers. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out to your teacher, reach out to staff, whoever, and we're here to help. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out to your staff. I know we are all very, very excited to see our students again and very excited to kind of, I don't want to say exactly normal, we'll get back to normal now. All right. Thank you. Bye.